So these are the tools that you're going to use for grafting, and this is a pair of bypass clippers, and they have a safety here. So you set this and then you can open this up. I really like how they're very sharp and they pop in and out very easily. So you use isopropyl alcohol to clean the blades. So I'm going to use a rag. And I'm going to wipe down the blade. So it's very clean when I go to the tree. The next tool I'm going to use is this box cutter. And I really like how thin the blade is. It's very thin. They're razor blade sharp. And it's a great tool to make the cut into the host branch. This is a grafting knife. The beauty of this is it's only beveled on one side. And the way you hold the knife is kind of like this. I'm holding the scion in this hand, and I'm going to make the cut like this, kind of pulling across. I'll demonstrate it when we get the scions out. So this is a grafting knife. It has the bevel just on one side. This is another kind of grafting knife, and this is for making a different kind of a graft. I'm not going to do this kind of a graft. I don't use this kind of a knife. This has a bevel on both sides, and so it cuts straight. The beauty of the grafting knife is it cuts on an angle. So I don't use this type of knife. When I'm going to do the cut, I do like to have a glove on my left hand so that when I'm cutting the wood, I can hold it with the glove and cut down to the leather, so I'm not cutting my hand. The other tool that I like to use, I just took a piece of wood and I cut a hole in it, and I can put this over the branch and then hold the branch and then make the cut, and then the blade just goes down to the wood. So it's another kind of a safety tool. So after you have made the cut and you've inserted the scion, you're going to tape it up. And I just use regular masking tape. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just regular household masking tape. And I'm going to take a piece off and I'm going to tape it up, and then I'm going to go to the top and I'm going to tape it back down to totally seal the wound. So we don't want to have the scion dry out. That's the main purpose for the tape. You want to keep all the moisture out of it. So after you've taped up and down and you know that it's all secure, then we're going to go on and we're going to label it. The next thing you do after you tape up the wound is to write on a piece of foil. This happens to be copper, but I've also used these embossed tags too. And these are great. These are the silver tags that you might see on the trees. These are a little fancier. These are like $10 for 100 or so, and these are much more expensive. So you're just going to write on the tag the name of the variety, and then you're going to string that on with the copper string. And it makes a great tag that will last for years instead of writing on tape or something else. So those are the tools, and we're going to get started doing some grafting. All right, so this is a Fuji tree, and I've already grafted onto it multiple locations. That's a Candy Crisp. This is a Yellow Delicious. I've got a Gordon. I've got a Shizuka, Carmjan de Sonneville. I've got lots of grafts already, and I picked this branch as the next one to graft onto because it's coming out, it has its own space, and there are not very many apple spurs on this, so it's not a productive branch at this point. So I'm going to take it down to about here, and I'm going to use my clippers, and I'm going to cut it off flat, and then I'm going to slice into it. So I made the flat cut, and now I'm going to split this in the middle, right like this. And I put on the leather gloves so that I don't push all the way through and cut myself. So I'm going to put the box cutter here, hold the branch, and I'm going to rock this gently until it starts splitting. And then when it starts to go, it goes really fast. There we go. And so I'm going to take it down about 3/4 of an inch. And I find that this box cutter, because it's so thin, it really makes an easy cut. So now I have a split here, and I'm going to get the scion, and I'm going to trim the scion and prepare it for the insertion here. So this is a piece of silken scion, and it's a cutting from a tree up in the Sierras. I really liked the yellow or the white fruit that it had, but it's cut on the top and it's cut on the bottom. So I'm going to take my cutters and I'm going to trim off the top, and I'm going to tape this up to prevent it from drying out. So I'm just going to use masking tape, and I'm going to get a short piece here, and I'm going to wrap it around the top. So I put the tape half on, half off, and then wrap it around. And this is going to prevent it from actually drying out. Then I'm just going to pinch the tape and bend it over, and that'll keep the moisture out of the top. Now I'm looking at the angle, and I see that it has a little bit of a swoop to it. So when I put it on the tree, I want it to go up like this. So if this is the up angle, then I'm going to turn it on its side, and because the bottom is dead down here or dried out because it's been in the fridge for a while, I'm going to trim this off also. That's just a flat cut. I see the green cambium layer just inside, and there's a bud right up here. So I like to start trimming at the bud down to the end, because there's a bud right here. That's going to add energy to the growth of this particular branch. So I'm going to get my knife out, knowing that this is the angle. I'm going to work with this bud, and I'm going to hold the knife like this, and I'm going to hold the branch in my left hand. I'm right-handed, and I'm going to put my arms into my body, and I'm going to flatten the knife down by the bud, and I'm going to make this kind of a motion like this, and I'm going to slice off, hopefully, just one easy gliding cut. Okay, so that's pretty flat, and it's right on the bud. Now I want to do it on the other side. So I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to start the knife at the same spot, right at the bud, hold it into my body, and I'm going to do the same kind of a cut. I'm going to pull, and what I want to do is get a nice screwdriver cut. This is a really nice cut. I like that. And if you have one side that is thicker than the other, you want to have that one on the outside. So the bud is on the top. I have a nice screwdriver cut. Now I'm going to take this, I'm going to insert it into the cut that I just made into the tree. So some scions are cut at the bottom and on the top, and you might wonder, well, how do I tell which is which? The buds actually point in the direction of the top of the growth. So all of these buds are pointing up in this direction. And so as you turn it over and you take a look at it, yep, the sharp end is all up there. So this is the top and this is the bottom. You look at the bud and it's actually pointing in the path of the growth. Now I'm still going to trim off the top here, and I'm going to tape it off and then close that tape off to prevent desiccation or drying out. And on the bottom, I'm going to cut this off, and then I'm going to do my screwdriver cut in order to insert it into the host. Okay, so now I have the cut in the host, and I've cut the scion as a screwdriver, and I'm going to now match and shove this into this slot. The most important thing that I'm doing here now is to make sure that the edge of the cambium here matches the edge of the cambium on the scion. And so I like to have the bud just a little bit around the top of this cut. I'm going to See if I can adjust it and get it a little bit finer than that. So I'm going to push it down, and I'm going to push with my fingers to get the top edge of the scion matching the top edge on the host. Now, it doesn't have to match on the top and the bottom, just on one side. So I'm making sure that the cambium layer of the scion matches the cambium layer of the host. That's the most important thing. Now I'm going to take some tape, and I'm going to tape up over the wound, and I'm going to tape down over the wound. So now I'm going to tape starting from beneath the wound, and I'm going to pull this as tight as I can while I'm wrapping it. And I want to wrap it on an angle so that it comes up over this wound. So I'm holding it fairly tight as I'm pulling it around. And I'm trying to seal any gaps in the tape that might show up as I'm doing this. So typically I'll do this with several pieces of tape just to kind of get it started and then to finish it off. So there's one section, and I've gone over the wound itself. Now I'll take a second piece of tape and reinforce that. Again, doing it as firmly as I can as I'm going around. The whole purpose of this is to seal this and keep the air and water out. So I'm now wrapping it around, pushing the tape down onto the branch as I'm going around, trying not to move the scion from the position where it was. Now that I've gone up above the wound, I'm going to start on the top and angle it so it now will tape down over the top and go down. Oops. Oh well. Do this again. So my whole purpose in doing this is to seal out any air and any water. Okay, that looks pretty good. And this will hold this wound for quite a while, up to 6 months or so. And then eventually it just disintegrates. So it's very nice and tight now. That's all we need to seal that. The next thing is to label it. So I'm pressing down on this ballpoint pen to emboss the name here, Silken Apple. And I'm going to date it. And then I'm going to take this copper wire and I'm going to twist it onto the branch.